Hey there, fellow deep divers. Ready to dive into the world of 17-year-olds. We've got a stack of excerpts here from Navigating Adolescence, a comprehensive guide for 17-year-olds. And I have to say, I'm already super curious. Seems like you're interested in what makes these almost adults tick, right?
Yeah, this book is it's pretty fascinating, It goes way beyond the typical stereotypes about teenagers.
Right. Like, it's not just, oh, teenagers are moody. It actually digs into, like, the neurological and psychological stuff that's going on during this stage.
Exactly. It's like it's not just about teenagers are so dramatic. This book actually explains like the science behind why they're so, reactive and impulsive.
Okay, so less teenagers are a mystery and more like, let's understand the why behind the what.
Yeah, totally. Like one thing that jumped out at me was how they talk about the prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain that's like the CEO in charge of decision making and impulse control.
Right, right.
Well, that part's still under construction in 17-year-olds. It's not fully developed yet, which explains a lot about their behavior.
So it's like their brains are literally wired differently.
Yeah, exactly. And when you understand that, it's kind of a game changer for anyone who, interacts with teenagers.
Totally. Makes those slam doors and eye rolls a little more understandable, maybe.
Exactly. Instead of just reacting to the behavior, you can start to, address those underlying developmental needs.
All about empathy, huh?
Yeah, it's huge.
So with this newfound brain science knowledge, what else does this guidebook offer? Because flipping through these excerpts, it seems to cover everything. Body image, building resilience.
It does. It's like it connects all these seemingly separate topics in a way that makes a lot of sense. Like, for example, the book highlights the link between physical health and emotional well-being.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember those years, the constant comparing yourself to others, all that awkwardness.
Mhm.
It's a lot for anyone to handle.
Totally. And the book delves into the science behind that, like how hormonal fluctuations during puberty, they can really intensify those feelings of self-consciousness.
Yeah, those hormones, they're no joke.
Right. And the book even offers some practical advice for parents and educators, like encouraging healthy sleep habits, which we all know can be a battle at this age.
Oh, yeah. Tell
Yeah.
me about it. So we're talking about more than just get off your phone and go to bed.
Right. It's about understanding that lack of sleep, it can actually worsen those mood swings and emotional volatility in teenagers. So, the book suggests things like creating a calming bedtime routine, limiting screen time before bed, maybe even advocating for later school start times, which is, backed by research.
Okay, that's actually pretty reassuring because I think most of us are kind of lost when it comes to like those late night phone battles.
Yeah, and the book also emphasizes physical activity, and not just for physical health, but as a way to manage stress and boost their mood. They suggest finding activities teenagers actually enjoy, right? Whether it's team sports or dance or even just taking walks in nature.
Getting them moving, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of managing stress, the book also talks about building resilience, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, what kind of tools do they suggest for equipping 17-year-olds to handle those inevitable curveballs? Life throws a lot at you, and it starts early.
Right, right. It's not just about bouncing back, it's about navigating those challenges in a healthy way. So the
Uh,
book really emphasizes these mindfulness techniques, teaching teenagers to, be present in the moment, manage their emotional responses.
okay, I can see that being useful.
Mhm.
I mean, I wish I had known about that stuff back then.
Right. And they even suggest, get this, journaling.
Journaling.
Yeah.
Seriously, I think 17-year-old me would have rolled their eyes so hard at that suggestion.
I know, it sounds a bit cliche, but the book makes a really compelling case for it. Like, they explain how writing can actually help teenagers process their emotions, right? Identify negative thought patterns, and even develop those coping mechanisms for stress and anxiety.
So it's more than just, Dear Diary, today I'm feeling. It's actually about giving them a tool to kind of understand their inner world.
Exactly. And beyond mindfulness and journaling, they really stress the importance of building a strong support system. So they talk about encouraging open communication, like with family and friends, seeking out mentors or, trusted adults, maybe even considering therapy when needed.
Right. So it's like, even though 17-year-olds, they're striving for all this independence, they still need that guidance and support from the adults in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding that balance, giving them space to grow, but also being there when they need it.
Being that safety net. It's like a reminder that even though the world has changed so much since we were teenagers, those fundamental needs, they haven't gone away.
Right, exactly. And speaking of this changing world, the book doesn't shy away from addressing the big one, the digital world.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Because let's be honest, technology, it's like a whole other language for these 17-year-olds.
Totally. And the book acknowledges that. Like the digital world, it's their native language, right? So they take a really nuanced approach to navigating it. Yes, they talk about the pitfalls like cyberbullying, online predators, all that stuff. But they also highlight the incredible opportunities that technology offers. They talk about like the power of technology for learning, for connecting with others, even for exploring career paths. It's like they're saying, hey, this digital world, it's a tool, right? It can be used for good or bad, so let's teach these kids to use it wisely.
Yeah, it's about empowerment, not just fear-mongering. I like that approach. Because let's be real, trying to keep teenagers completely away from technology, it's like an impossible battle.
Right, exactly. It's like trying to swim upstream. So instead of fighting against it, the book suggests like guiding them to navigate it, safely and responsibly.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
So they talk about setting healthy boundaries with screen time, discussing online etiquette and privacy, even encouraging critical thinking about the information they're consuming online.
So it's about digital literacy, not just digital abstinence.
Exactly. And you know what else struck me? The book actually encourages 17-year-olds to think about their digital footprint.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like how the things they post online today can have consequences down the road, especially when it comes to things like college admissions or future jobs.
Wow, that's something I wish I'd known about at 17.
Yeah.
Social media wasn't really a thing back then, but I definitely cringed thinking about some of the things I posted online in those early internet days.
It's a whole new world for them, right? And I think this book does a really good job of like addressing those challenges and opportunities in a way that's realistic but also empowering.
Okay, so we've talked about the science behind teenage brains. We've talked about physical and mental health, this whole navigating the digital world thing. But this book, it seems to go even deeper than that.
It does. It really tackles some of those like big existential questions that 17-year-olds grapple with. Questions of identity, purpose, their place in the world, all that stuff.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
Yeah.
And I remember those years being so full of, like, uncertainty and self-doubt. How does the book even begin to address those kinds of questions?
Well, it starts by encouraging self-reflection, like asking those 17-year-olds to really think about their values, beliefs, passions, what really matters to them.
I can see that being valuable.
It even goes into exploring sexuality and gender identity,
Yeah.
recognizing that, this is a time of so much self-discovery and recognizing the complexities around identity formation.
So it's like they're giving them permission to question things, to explore, to not have all the answers figured out yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's so important because in a world that often pressures teenagers to conform, to have it all figured out, this book is like, hey, it's okay to just be, embrace the uncertainty, and figure things out at your own pace.
I wish I had a book like this when I was 17. It would have saved me a lot of, like, angst and self-doubt.
Me too. But you know what I find really hopeful? The book doesn't just leave them there, like, lost in a sea of existential questions. It gives them tools to navigate those questions.
Oh, that's good. What kind of tools?
Well, they talk about things like mindfulness, journaling, even seeking guidance from those trusted adults we talked about earlier.
Okay, so it's not just about pondering the meaning of life. It's about giving them practical strategies to cope with those, like big feelings and anxieties.
Exactly. They talk about building healthy coping mechanisms for stress, practicing gratitude, cultivating a growth mindset, that belief that you can learn and grow from your experiences, even the tough ones.
Those are good life skills for anyone, honestly, not just teenagers.
So
Okay, so we're equipping them with the tools for their inner world, the digital world. But what about the, like, real world? The world of, school, work, relationships, all that adulting stuff that's looming on the horizon.
that's where the book gets super practical. Like there are whole sections on time management, goal setting, communication skills, even financial literacy.
It's like adulting 101, huh?
Totally. But what's really insightful is how they connect those practical skills with the themes of personal growth and self-discovery.
I see what you mean.
It's not just, hey, you need to learn how to balance a checkbook. It's more like, hey, learning to manage your finances can give you the freedom to pursue your passions.
It's about connecting those seemingly mundane tasks to their bigger dreams.
Exactly. And I think that's so much more inspiring, right, for these 17-year-olds who are just starting to see all the possibilities ahead of them.
Speaking of possibilities, does the book talk about, like, exploring different career paths? Because I remember feeling so much pressure to, like, choose the right path, know exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And looking back, I had no clue.
They do, and they really encourage that exploration.
That's good to hear.
Like, they suggest things like shadowing professionals, volunteering in different fields, a solar passion project.
So it's more about like trying things on for size, seeing what fits, not being afraid to change course along the way,
Exactly. They really emphasize that it's totally okay to not have it all figured out at 17.
which is, reassuring for anyone who's ever felt that pressure to have it all figured out.
Totally. In fact, they actually encourage taking a gap year after high school, to travel, volunteer, explore different interests before committing to a career path.
So it's about like taking the pressure off, giving them space to discover what really lights them up.
Exactly. And, speaking of finding their spark, the book also talks about nurturing those passions and interests outside of, school and career goals.
So we're not just creating like robots who can ace their exams, get a high-paying job.
Right.
There's room for creativity, fun, pursuing those things that just bring joy.
Exactly. They talk about finding those activities that give them a sense of purpose and fulfillment, whether it's playing music, creating art, joining a sports team, volunteering.
It's about balance,
Yeah.
right? Like finding that sweet spot between striving for success and nurturing well-being. Because burnout is real, and it's something a lot of teenagers struggle with these days.
Totally. And the book addresses that head on. They talk about the importance of self-care, setting healthy boundaries, prioritizing their mental and emotional well-being.
It's not just about achieving.
Right.
It's about thriving, creating a life that feels fulfilling and, sustainable.
Exactly. And you know what I found refreshing? This book, it doesn't just focus on the individual. It encourages those 17-year-olds to think about their role in the larger world, too.
Okay, so we're talking about more than just like getting good grades and landing a good job.
Yeah.
We're talking about like becoming engaged citizens,
Yeah.
contributing to their communities, making a positive impact.
Exactly. They talk about things like social responsibility, finding ways to use your talents to make a difference, whether it's advocating for social justice, volunteering, or even just being kind and compassionate to those around you.
It's about empowering them to be the change, right?
Yes. And the book, it doesn't shy away from those big challenges our world's facing, climate change, social inequality, political polarization.
Whoa, those are some heavy topics. How do they even begin to address those with like a 17-year-old audience?
Well, they start by acknowledging the reality of these challenges and the anxiety that can come with that.
Right. Makes sense.
But then they go a step further and empower those teenagers to take action. They talk about staying informed about current events, engaging in respectful dialogue with people who have different viewpoints, finding ways to get involved in movements or organizations that align with their values.
So it's about like equipping them to navigate those realities and become agents of change, not just shielding them from it all.
Exactly. It's about fostering a sense of hope, even in the face of these, big, daunting challenges.
That's a powerful message for sure.
And you know what I found really inspiring? The book doesn't just focus on these big global issues. It also encourages those 17-year-olds to think about the small, everyday ways they can make a difference.
So we're talking about like being kind to classmates,
Yeah.
helping out at home, smiling at a stranger.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even those small acts of kindness can make a difference.
That's a ripple effect, right?
Totally.
Okay, this is all really resonating with me. It's like, it's not just about preparing these 17-year-olds for the world. It's about preparing the world for them too.
Yeah, I love that.
Like creating a world that's more welcoming, more inclusive, a world that values their creativity and their passion for making a difference.
That's beautiful. And it makes me think maybe we can all learn something from these almost adults. Their idealism, their willingness to challenge the status quo. Maybe those are the very qualities we need to build a better future.
Absolutely. And this whole conversation's really got me thinking about relationships too, because that's a big part of navigating life at any age, but especially for teenagers, right?
It is. And the book has a lot to say about that, too. Like, they talk about the importance of communication,
Yeah, communication's key.
learning to express your needs and boundaries, being a good listener. They talk about empathy, trying to understand other people's perspectives, even when you disagree.
It's about building that emotional intelligence, right?
Exactly. And it goes beyond just communication, too. They talk about the importance of respect, trust, compromise, even things like conflict resolution, offering tips for navigating those disagreements in a healthy way.
So it's like, instead of just saying, don't fight with your sister, it's more like, hey, here's how to communicate what you need and find a solution that works for everyone.
Right. And, they also talk about choosing your friends wisely.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, and they explain how the people we surround ourselves with can really have a huge impact on our lives, both good and bad.
Like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. And they encourage those 17-year-olds to seek out friends who support them, who share their values, and who, bring out the best in them.
Find your tribe.
Yes. And speaking of finding your tribe, the book talks about the importance of mentors and role models.
Those people who can, offer guidance and support.
Exactly. And they suggest reaching out to coaches, community leaders, older siblings, even family friends.
So it's about expanding that circle of support, recognizing that you don't have to go through this alone.
And, the book doesn't just drop them off at the doorstep of adulthood and wish them luck. They offer some really practical advice for making that transition.
Okay, like what?
Well, they talk about things like budgeting, finding a place to live, managing your time, even building a professional network.
It's like Adulting 201, huh?
Right. But with a focus on, empowering those young adults to create the life they want.
That's a nice way to frame it.
And they also offer some tips for dealing with those, inevitable setbacks that come along the way.
Because, let's be real, life rarely goes according to plan, right?
Totally. And knowing how to handle those curveballs, that's a skill that everyone needs.
Resilience.
Yes.
Right.
Learning to bounce back, asking for help when you need it.
It's like saying, hey, it's okay to stumble. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to change course if things aren't working out. Just keep moving forward and keep learning.
And, I really love how the book ends on such a hopeful and optimistic note.
Yeah.
It doesn't just focus on all the challenges.
There's a sense of possibility.
Yeah, exactly. They remind those 17-year-olds that they are living in this time of incredible change and opportunity, and that they have the power to shape the world they want to live in.
It's like, go out there and make your mark.
Exactly. And, I really love how they actually end the book with a challenge.
Ooh, a challenge. I love it. What is it?
Well, they challenge those 17-year-olds to be kind, to be courageous, to be compassionate, and to never stop learning and growing.
Those are good challenges to have.
Right.
Like, hey, the world needs you, your unique talents, your perspectives. Don't be afraid to shine.
Yes. And I think that's a message that we all need to hear. And, that makes me think about something the book does kind of subtly that I think is really important.
I'm all ears. What's that?
Well, it's how the book emphasizes, while we as a society often focus on the challenges of adolescence, we sometimes forget about all the amazing things they bring to the table.
Totally. It's like we get so caught up in the stereotypes that we miss the fact that these are incredible individuals,
Yeah.
with unique gifts and perspectives.
Exactly. It's like they're not just problems to be solved, they're active agents of change. And this book reminds us that they're not just the future, they're the present, too.
That's a good point. We need to be listening to them, learning from them.
Right. Valuing their contributions.
So it's almost like a call to action for us adults then.
Yeah.
Not just a guidebook for teenagers.
Exactly. It's like an invitation to shift our perspective, to try to see the world through their eyes, to recognize their potential to create positive change.
I love that. That's powerful. And it makes me wonder, what can we do as adults to better support the 17-year-olds in our lives?
Well, the book has a lot of advice about that, too.
Yeah.
It encourages, open communication, active listening, creating a space where teenagers feel safe to express themselves without judgment.
Yeah, that's so important.
And being patient, understanding, remembering that their brains are still developing, so those emotional responses might seem, out of proportion sometimes.
Meeting them where they are, basically.
Exactly. And offering guidance and support without being, controlling. Finding that balance between giving them freedom to make choices and being there for them if they fall.
Being a guide on the side, not a sage on the stage.
Yes,
Yeah.
Perfectly said. And also recognizing that we don't have all the answers, Sometimes the best thing we can do is just listen and empathize and let them know we believe in them.
Be their cheerleader,
Exactly.
their champion, even when they don't believe in themselves.
This whole conversation, it's left me with one kind of lingering thought.
Ooh, a thought-provoking takeaway. I'm here for it.
It's this. We often talk about, preparing teenagers for the world. But what if we also focused on preparing the world for them?
Whoa. Okay, now that's a mind shift. What do you mean by that?
Well, what if we created a world that was more welcoming to them, more inclusive, a world that really valued their creativity, their idealism, their desire to make a difference?
Instead of trying to fit them into some mold of who we think they should be.
Yes. We create a world that embraces their individuality and empowers them to thrive.
I love that. That's a world I want to live in, for sure. It makes me think maybe we can learn something from these almost adults. Their energy, their willingness to, challenge the status quo. Maybe those are the qualities we need to build a better future.
I completely agree. And I think this book, Navigating Adolescence, it offers us a glimpse of that. It's not just a guide for teenagers. It's a reminder for all of us to embrace that power of youth, nurture their potential, and create a world where they can truly thrive.
It's a call to action for all of us, parents, teachers, mentors, anyone who interacts with young people. Let's step up and be the allies they need to navigate this pretty complex world.
And for anyone listening who wants to dive even deeper into the world of 17-year-olds, we definitely recommend checking out Navigating Adolescence. You can find links to buy it in the episode description.
And with that, fellow deep divers, we've reached the end of our exploration. But of course, the journey doesn't end here. Keep learning, keep growing, keep connecting, and let's create a world where every 17-year-old can shine.
Until next time, keep diving deep.